Hello and welcome back. After just taking a short break, we're ready to go ahead and finish off the undercarriage of the front section of our vehicle. And what we're going to be doing is first finishing off the wheel mechanism. We want to go ahead and be sure that even though we're not immediately animating this and we're just focusing on the modeling, we still want to be sure that if someone were to go in and animate this, or if we were to do that in the future, we want to be sure that it's built in such a way that it could feasibly work. And then we're also going to detail this section a bit more and finish off all of these sections, going all the way back to right in here, such that we can then jump right in on chapter 4 and start modeling all of this midsection detail, which is where, a lot of the really nitty gritty, awesome modeling is really going to take place. So starting out, the first thing that I want to do is actually go back and fix something that I realized was a bit of an issue with the previous piece, and that is this part right in here. What I want to do with it, and what I realized was actually the issue, is that we don't need this second piece right here. Let me just isolate all of this real quick. So I've just selected all these by shift right clicking on them while in wireframe mode. And then I'm just going to hit shift H to hide everything else. And like I was saying, we don't actually want this second hinge here. It doesn't actually do much good. Now, if we were to do some further work, we could make this work. But for the way that this is going to be constructed, it's pretty simple. And so we don't need it in here. And so the easiest way to go ahead and fix this, or the way that I'm going to do it, is I'm just going to go into edit mode and I'm going to merge these two pieces together such that they form one single mesh. Now, in order to do that, I first want to just select it, and we'll just hit 3 to go back to side view. Since our view tends to constantly move around when we select things like that, first we can deselect this. But then if you need to recenter at your selection, you can just hit period on your number pad. And then what I want to do is adjust this such that it fits perfectly with this mesh back here. In order to do that, just to help isolate things a bit more, I'm going to select the bolt right here and the bolt right here, and I'm just going to hit H to hide those again. And the main thing you'll notice is that the angle of these pieces does not quite line up. So let's select this, and let's just hit R to rotate it, and we just want to rotate this down, and I'm holding down Shift right now while rotating in order to manipulate it at smaller increments, and I just want to get it fairly close. And now, in order to help get it exact, what I'm going to do is temporarily insert an edge loop right across here by hitting Control R, and then as soon as it's placed, I'll just left click and then right click to immediately leave it in the center. And what this will then allow me to do is select it, hit Control Shift Tab to switch into Vertex Snapping, and then I'm going to hit G, Shift X, so I'm excluding the X axis, and then I'm just going to hold down Control and snap to this vertex. So what this does then is puts this perfectly in line with this vertex. So now I can go ahead and deselect everything, hit B to bring up my box select, left click and drag to drag across these, and I'm going to hit Shift S and cursor to selected. And what this does now is when I hit period to rotate around my cursor, I can select this and now use that vertex as my pivot point. And the reason that this is key is that I can now actually go in, zoom in real close here, and I'll be able to rotate this to perfectly match this angle. Now, what I think I will do is, now I'm not positive this will work, but let's try hitting Control Shift Tab, switch into Edge Snap mode, and then hit R and just snap right down to that edge. And now you'll notice that those vertices are pretty much snapping right to it. And I think that will be plenty close right there. I think that will work. So now what I want to do is to go ahead and add in some extra edge loops and reposition some of these edge loops to match up with this. So let's go ahead and just select these two objects by hitting L and L while hovering our mouse over some of the vertices, and hit Shift H to isolate our selection again. And you'll notice that we've still got some of the other objects in here. So let's hit Tab to leave edit mode, and then we'll hit Shift H one more to hide those objects, and then hit Tab to go into edit mode. And this way we can just focus on these exclusively. So the first thing I need to do is let's just grab this edge loop here, and actually, no. First I want to select this, and let's just hide it temporarily. And then I'm going to go in here and select these edge loops by Alt-Shift right clicking on them. I'm going to hit X and delete vertices. The reason for this is that if I now hit Alt-H and then just select these two pieces and hit Shift-H, you'll notice that we already have the hole through this part of the mesh. And so this is actually going to be solid all the way through. Let's go ahead and select this and hit Shift-H as well, because I want to now go ahead and from the top view, I'm just going to use my Control left click and drag for my lasso select to select all these faces and hit X and delete faces. And I'll also select these interior edge loops and hit X and delete vertices. So now I can hit Alt-H, and again, I'll just select the two objects and hit Shift-H. So now I have both of these in here. I can go ahead and delete these faces as well. I'll select these ones and then select these ones. So you'll notice what I'm doing is I'm just deleting all of what will become the interior faces when I merge these together. So let's go ahead and hit Control R, add an edge loop to right here. And then I just want to hit Control E and edge slide. And unfortunately, during edge slide, we can't actually snap to any other vertices or other elements. And so we just have to go in here and slide them manually. So if we just zoom in real close, we can hit Control E, edge slide, hold down Shift, and then just slide them right up to that point. And now you'll notice that some of these are still not quite lined up. It looks like my rotating didn't quite work. So let's select this, hit period to rotate around the cursor, hit R, and hold down Shift to rotate this. And that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and select this edge loop. Let's hit Control E and edge slide. Slide it over just a little bit. And for the time being, just to help clear this up, I'm going to go into hit N to bring over my properties panel, go down to the mesh display, and disable creases for the moment so that we can see things a little bit more clearly. Now with this done, I can go ahead and let's just select all of this interior mesh here up to here, deselect that one. We can just Alt-Shift right-click to select those, and this one as well. And then I'm going to hit S, X, and hit Control-Shift-Tab, switch back to Vertex, S, X, and snap in, rotating around the individual center by hitting comma, and just snap in to that vertex. That way things line up a little bit better. And then I also need to go ahead and let's hit period to scale down, and just hit S and scale down until this lines up with this right here, about like that. So these two are now lined up, and that should be close enough to work perfectly. We can reselect these interior loops about like this, and select that one, deselect those. And actually, okay, that's actually really not lining up very well. So let's undo this a couple of times. I'm going to go back to where I have this selected, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit X and delete faces. Make sure all those faces are removed. Then I'm going to go in here, select both these loops again, deselect these ones, and I'm just going to hit X and delete vertices. Sometimes it's just better to start from scratch. And so now I can go in here, I'm going to select this edge loop. I'm going to hit G, Shift X, snap up to here. I'll now select these ones, and these ones, and these, and hit G and Shift X, snap up to there. And then I'll do the same thing with this loop, G, Shift X, snap. I'll add in another loop, slide it over just a little bit, then G and Shift X, snap to there. And this works well since these are already lined up. I don't have to worry about it not lining up correctly. I can go ahead and I will remove all of these faces as well, deselecting any of the bottom side, just hit X and delete faces. So now I can just select these, fill in a face, do the same thing over here and here. And then you can see I'm going to have to create a new edge loop all the way along here. So let's just hit Control R, slide this up, and then we'll hit G and Shift X again, snap up along there. So effectively we're just sliding it up, and then we'll add in a face. And let's then remove this center edge loop by just hitting X and delete edge loop. And then I can add in another one down here, and then G, Shift X, snap to that one. I need to select this bottom one, and G and Shift X, snap to there. And the same thing over here and here. So first, just select this one by Alt-Shift right-clicking, hit G, Shift X, snap to there. And then this one. There we are. And then these can fill in a face. We need to add in another edge loop up to here to line up with that. So G, Shift X. And then we can fill that face. You notice I'm only going to do the one side, and then I will flip it over. We'll fill this one, and then fill this one. And that actually gives us a really nice curve right there that actually works perfectly, that we'll actually go ahead and leave. And then I want to go ahead and replicate this across here. So I'm going to add in 2 edge loops. I'm going to select one first, hit SX, first hit comma, and then SX and 0 just to straighten it out. Same thing here. And let's go ahead and do the same thing with each of these ones. And then I will go ahead, I want to move this over along the X-axis to line up with this. And then we will fill in this face. And then I can go ahead, I want to fill this one, then I'll do the same thing, move this over along the X-axis to that vertex. Then I'll fill in that face. And I have to do the same thing over here because some of this will not actually mirror across, and so we need to be sure that it's correct. Fill that, and fill that. And then what I want to do is to go ahead and cancel this out now. So best way to do that probably is take this edge, hit V, or actually let's just, instead we're going to hit Shift D, move this edge up just slightly along the Z axis. And then we can go in here, fill in a face, and fill in a face, and then fill that. And then I'll add in one more edge loop right through here, which at this point I will delete that face, and I will delete this edge, and then I can just go in and fill in a face right here, and then select this, fill a face, and select that, and fill a face. And so that creates a kind of blend between them. You can see it particularly over here. It looks pretty good. Now we're going to have a bit of creasing that we need to fix in some of these areas, because remember right now we actually are not showing the creases, and so we may need to do some adjustments on there. I'm also going to select these vertices, hit G, X, snap across, and then do the same thing with the rest of these. There we go, such that it's the same width. That looks much better. Okay, so now I just need to go ahead and duplicate this across. I'm just going to do a little bit at a time. So let's hit Control Tab, go to Face Mode, select these, and then I'm going to deselect all of these ones. And then I will select all of these. Deselect that, deselect those. And again, I can just deselect by hitting B and middle click and dragging. That looks good. I'm going to go ahead and actually, I can deselect these as well. I just want the top and bottom surface. And so this is one of those times where it works really well to work in face mode rather than in vertex mode, just so this is a much easier process. And I'll deselect that one. Okay, now I'm going to hit Shift D, right click, SX, -1, just to ensure it's flipped across. Move it across the X-axis, hit Control Shift Tab to go to Vertex Snap, and then I'll just hit G, X, and snap right to there. And now you'll notice that there's some differences in this, but I want to ensure that I keep this side, and so what I'm going to do is just select all of these interior faces, or all of, actually, let's just hit 1 to go to front view, and then we'll select all of these faces like that, and we're going to hit G, X, snap across to those vertices, and then I can select everything, W, and remove doubles. You also notice I'm getting some black spots in here, so let's hit Control N to recalculate the normals. And we have a duplicate face down here. And in order to ensure that these are the same, I'm going to hit Control Tab, go back to vertex mode, grab this one, and just snap over to that vertex. Then select everything, W, remove doubles, and then Control N once more to fix that area. Now we can double check on the bottom, make sure everything's good, which in this case we still need a loop right here. So I'll just hit Control R, add that loop, slide it over a little bit, and then snap to there, select everything, W, and remove doubles. Now it looks like the bottom one still needs a face down here, or actually we need faces on all of them. So what I want to do is hit 3 to go to side view. I'm going to just select this face here, and in fact actually select these ones. We're going to hit Shift D, right click, and then let's just go ahead, let's go ahead and hide that for a moment. And I'm going to go in and grab this face. I'm going to hit Control Shift to turn on my manipulators and change the mode over to normal. And you'll notice I now have a perfect angle here. So I can now go ahead and create a new one. I believe it's actually Control Alt space will create a new one based on your current selection. So now it's just face 001. So now we can hit Alt H. We can now select this piece, and we're going to hit, let's select, say, these vertices, and we're going to hit Shift S, cursor to selected, and then I'll select this right in here, Shift L to deselect that one, and then I'm going to hit S, or first period, to rotate around the cursor, or you can change it right down here, and then I'll hit S, and then double tap Z to go to the local Z axis, and -1, and that will flip that around. And then I can select everything, W, remove doubles. You'll notice that none of them removed, and it's because we've got some issues where we need to line things up. So what I want to do is I'm going to select the vertices not from the new selection, and so I'll just hit G, snap those together, select everything, W, remove doubles, and then I'll do the same thing over here. So notice I'm manipulating the ones in the original mesh, not in the new part. Then I'll deselect those, snap those over, and you'll notice there's a fair few issues, but by working only, or by manipulating only the original mesh, then I can help to create a more symmetrical mesh. And periodically I will go in and remove doubles, hit Control N, recalc normals. Oops. Remove those doubles. Then we've got issues over here to fix still. In this case, I'll just delete these vertices. Oops, no, that's not right. I will delete these edges, X, delete edges, and then I can snap that over, delete that vertex, delete these vertices, these ones, select everything, W, remove doubles, Control N, and that looks pretty right. Now I could go ahead, I will just go ahead and select these vertices, and I will hit SX, snap over to there just to line them up a little bit better so they're a little smoother. But I would say for the time being, for a piece that we won't see a whole lot of, this will work just fine. Now I do have another vertex right here I need to fix, and I believe one more right there. There we go. Okay, so that looks much better. Now what I want to do is go into object mode, Alt H to unhide everything else, and I need to fix where this is lined up at. So let's just select this piece in here, or actually instead I want to go in here. I'm going to select this corner, or no, I'm going to select this right here, Shift S, cursor to selection. Go into here, select this piece, hit tab to go into edit mode, select this whole piece by hitting L, and then period to rotate around the cursor. I'm going to hit R and rotate this around just a little bit until it lines up just right. So there we go. That looks pretty good. Now I want to go ahead and move on to fixing up this piece right in here. And the way that I'm going to do that is I want to add in a track system of sorts that will allow this piston and this piece to actually basically slide down like this and rotate around such that, as this wheel lowers, this can slide along and push the wheel down to compensate for the distance. So this is going to be fairly easy to do. Let's go ahead and select these pieces, and then we'll Shift H to hide everything else. So again, we can kind of help isolate things. And I'm first just going to go hit Tab to go into edit mode. And I basically just want to fill in this hole starting at this surface, connect it to here, connect it back here, and then we'll add in the sidewalls and add in a track system of sorts. So let's first just do the easy part by filling in this face and that face. And then let's just go ahead and take this edge. Let's extrude it back along the, let's see, if we go to side view, we want to focus right along here. Let's see, if we undo this, let's select these edges. Let's switch this over to normal view and comma to rotate around the axis. Deselect these ones here and this one there. And that's still not right. Let's go ahead. If we make an edge on here by hitting F and then select, let's see, not quite what I want. Well, there we go. That works. So now I've got a perfect parallel to this along this angle. So I'm going to hit Control-Alt-Space, which will create that new angle. So now I can go in and I'm going to delete this edge that I just created. And then I'm going to select this edge and I'm going to hit E to extrude, scale along the move along the local y-axis, slide it all the way back to right in here. And that was a little bit far. So I'll hit 3 to go back to side view. Control-Shift-Tab, make sure I'm on Vertex Snap, hit G, Y, Y, snap right to there. Or actually, I need to snap to right there. And now I can select these, hit F to fill that face. You'll notice this back in here is a little bit wider. So let's select these pieces, hit G, X, snap across to there, make sure they're the same width. And now they are. So now I can go ahead and add another edge loop, snap, let's see, X along the local y-axis, snap to that vertex. And so I'll fill these. So you can kind of see how the custom transform orientations are absolutely fantastic when you need to do some custom things. So like here again, I added an edge loop, but if I were to just snap this along the x-axis by hitting G or y-axis and snap to there, you'll notice that this angle is no longer straight. But if I go along the local y-axis, having set up that orientation, I can snap right across here and it basically just slides to it. So very, very cool and a really handy trick for when you need to do some things like that. Okay, now I've filled that in and I need to fill this as well, but I've got this extra edge loop. So let's add in a loop right up here. I'm going to hit G, Z, snap right up to there, and I'll grab that closest vertex and fill that in. Although I guess that didn't go, yeah, no, that's accurate. Maybe I'll pull that down a little bit just to compensate. And these ones went a little bit too high. Pull those down. Okay, then I can fill in that face. And that starts to create a good track system for me. But I want to take this track system, I want to take it back a little bit further. I want to go, let's see, just looking at this, I want to actually take this sidewall all the way back through here. So what I'm going to do is hit 3 to go to side view. Let's select this piece. I'm going to hit Shift H to hide everything else. And then I'm just going to select this mesh. I'm going to hit X, or actually I'm going to select all this, hit X and delete faces. Then I'm going to grab these. I'm going to hit G, Y, Y, snap across to there. I'm going to take these down, excluding the X-axis or the Y-axis, down to there just to line them up a little bit. Maybe I'll take them down along the Z-axis, a little local Z-axis, just a little bit. And then I'll hit Alt-H to unhide everything else. I'll select this, excuse me, and then I want to just hit E to extrude, double tap Y to go along the local Y, and I want to just pull that out to right in there. And so that way it just takes it back a little further, kind of cleans up the mesh for me. And then all I need to do is, actually, maybe I'll take this back along the local Y a little less, because then I can just select, say, this mesh right in here, and this, extrude, snap to there, extrude, snap to there, and select everything, W, remove doubles, and then I'll just alt-right click to select this edge loop, and I'll hit E to extrude, double tap the Y, and take it out a little further. And so that gives me an end to the track system. And then what I can do is maybe I'll select or add in another edge loop, or actually no. Rather than not using the edge loops, I'm going to hit N to bring up my control panel, my properties again. I'm going to hit Creases to enable those again. And since this is an area of the model that we're not going to see a lot of, it's okay to go ahead and use creases here. Like my general rule of thumb that I like to follow as far as creases are concerned is if you're not going to see the model a lot in that area, or if it's not going to be basically front and center the whole time, it's okay to use the creases rather than, say, just a perimeter edge loop. I do apologize for getting a little croaky here, but the main thing is that with the edge loops, you can get a really sharp, clean mesh that even really, when you're at a real close-up shot, it'll still look good. With the creases, unless you use a combination, you're not going to get as sharp of a result that will look as good at basically all distances. And so just kind of think of it that way. If you need to see the detail real close, use the edge loops. If you don't really care about seeing it real close, or you're not likely to see it, then go ahead and use creases or a combination of both. So in this case, since it's on the bottom and it's kind of hidden by the wheel and the wheel is kind of the focus, I'm going to go ahead and use some creases. So I'll just hit Shift E and take this up to 1. And I'll do this along the whole perimeter. So I'll do it back here and to here and here and here. And then I'll hit Shift E and 1. I'll also do it in each one of these corners. Shift E, 1. And Shift E and 1. So I'm just alt-right clicking on those. I'll also do it right back here. And then I'll also go along this whole perimeter edge, just like this. So I'm just selecting all those vertices, and then I'll hit, or select this one as well, then Shift E. And on these, I'm just going to take it up to 0.8, give me a slightly softer crease, rather than being really sharp. And just make it look a little bit better. Sometimes the full solid crease can be a little bit much. I also want to do this edge right in here. And we'll also do this edge back here. So Shift E, and again, I'll do the 0.8. And then I would also like to do this edge through here. So Shift E, 0.8. And that will give me a nice kind of molded effect right in there. Let's see, I want to go ahead and do the track system now. The track system is going to be pretty simple. Basically what I'm going to do is just select, say, this series of edges, but deselecting all those, and there we go. I'm just going to hit Shift D, X to move in along the X-axis, move in just a little bit, and then I will extrude again, and I want to just pull it in to one of these edges along the edge of the piston. Then I'll hit Control L to select everything, and I'm going to hit E to extrude, double tap Z to bring it along the Z-axis, and take it up above the piston just a little bit, and that looks pretty good. So that just creates my track system of sorts. And so now I'll go ahead and select all the edges, Shift E and 1, same thing here, Shift E and 1, and then on the bottom side, I'll actually just go ahead and delete the faces, hit X, delete faces, and maybe I'll just pull them slightly below the surface by hitting G and then double tapping Z just to ensure that they're all the way down. Then I can also go ahead and delete this face right in here, because you'll notice right now we're getting this tapering at the end that we really don't want, and the same thing right over here. So I'll just hit X and delete faces. There we go. Then I'll select everything as well and hit Control N and W and shade smooth, because I was getting some solid shading right in there. Okay. Now I would like to go ahead and add in, say, 2 edge loops right in here, which will just strengthen that up a little bit, just help give me a slightly stronger effect. I can also take it along the local Z-axis just a little bit, and maybe hit S and X to scale out along the X-axis as well. Whoops, that was too much. Okay, and if I want, I could go ahead and crease these at, say, 0.8 and 0.8, and that will give me a slightly beveled effect on those to just improve the result a little bit more. Okay, so that looks pretty good as a track system. You know, really, it's not a lot of detail, but once you combine everything, looking at it from an angle and a distance and things like that, it'll start to work pretty well. So if we hit Alt-H to unhide everything else, we can kind of see how this is coming along. And of course, we'll save our file. What I want to do is a couple things. I want to finish off this, or well, actually, this piece is fine just like it is. We'll actually finish off the intersection on here on this part, but I would like to polish off this result a little bit more. So let's hit Control R. Let's add an edge loop right up to here. Let's also go ahead and crease this loop. So I'll hit Shift E, 0.8, and then I'll do the same thing with this right here. Except I'm going to hit Control E and edge slide, bring it up just a little bit, and then Shift E, 0.8. Bring those around. That looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and leave that for the time being, just like it is. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and crease this one as well. So Shift E, 0.8. Okay. I can go ahead and from the side view, I'm going to select all of these faces. And I'm going to hit X and delete faces because we really don't need those in there. We also don't need any of these top faces that you see right there. So I'll just hit X, delete those faces. It's just an extra poly count that we don't need. Now let's go ahead and we're going to move on. I want to clean up this piece a little bit more. So let's hit Tab, go back in edit mode. I'm going to select this right in here. And basically what I want to do is from the bottom view, which I can hit access by hitting Control 7, I'm going to hit E to extrude, take it out along the Y-axis to about right here. And then I'm going to bring it in along the X-axis just a little bit by hitting G and X. And before this merges with the center, because you notice that if I go all the way in, it locks to the center, I can then hit S and X to scale it in a little bit more and average those back out. And I'll go in a bit more. And you can just kind of alternate until you get it in where you want it. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit 3 to go back to side view. And I'm going to scale this along the Z-axis as well. But rather than doing multiple steps, let's just select this portion and hit Shift S, cursor to selected, select all this, hit period to rotate towards the cursor, and then hit S and Z and scale this right down. And then what I want to do to sharpen this up is we're going to select this loop. We're going to hit Shift E and 0.8 to crease that. I'll also go ahead and select this loop as well, Shift E, 0.8. There we go. We could even get rid of this loop in here, but I'm going to go ahead and leave it. And instead, I'm going to let's see. Let's leave that like it is for the time being until we get a better idea of what we're going to do with it exactly. Let's go in and work on this section now. So I'll hit Tab to go back in edit mode. And first thing that I want to do is go ahead and separate this out. So just for a nice design, I'm going to go ahead and grab these edges right in here. And I'm going to hit Y to split them. And then I'll just go ahead and move it out along the X-axis a little bit to ensure that they're not merging together. Let's go ahead and select this edge. We're just going to hit X and delete vertices and just select it by Alt right-clicking on it. And then let's take this edge. We're going to hit S, X, and 0. Whoops. Scale towards individual center. S, X, and 0 to straighten that up. And that's... Oh, sorry, not X. I'm going to scale along the Y-axis. There we go. That would explain why things weren't quite lining up. And then what I want to go ahead and do is we're going to add in, say, 2 edge loops on this. And then I'm going to grab first this face. I'm going to take it down along the Z-axis a fair bit. And then I'll grab this face, take it down along the Z-axis a bit until we've got a nice kind of arc on this. We'll actually take that back up just a little bit. We'll also take that up and that up. Just about like that. That looks pretty good. Take that one back up a little. I'm going to hit Control Space to turn off my manipulators. I really don't need it anymore at the moment. Let's go ahead and take this. We're going to take it back along the Y-axis and up a little bit. We're just going to take it right back to there. And we're going to deselect this vertex. Then we'll take this down. Actually, that looks pretty good right there. what I want to do now is we're going to add in another edge loop right up to this edge, and then we're going to select this. We're going to take this up, and then we'll take these interior vertices up along the z-axis such that it's all right inside here. And then real quick, before we do any more detailing on here, let's go and select this front section. And we're going to take this edge, and we're just going to hit E to extrude, take it up along the z-axis a bit. We'll also select these edges, and we're going to hit Shift E and 1. Take those up, make it nice and sharp. Let's also hit Command to rotate around our individual center. And I really want to go ahead and clean up this mesh just a little bit. This corner is looking really nasty. So the way that I'm going to do that is let's just go in here, Control Tab, go into face mode, select all these faces, hit X, delete faces, hit Control Tab, go back to vertex mode, and we're just going to grab, let's see, on this part, we're just going to take this vertex and we're going to snap it right over to there. We're going to add in another edge loop right about there, grab this vertex, snap them over to there. Maybe we will then grab both of these, move them over along the x-axis and back along the y. We can also rotate them, maybe scale them in just a bit, and then let's select everything, W, and remove doubles. And then we need to, on this edge, let's just remove this edge loop in here. We don't need it, so we'll just hit X, delete edge loop, and then we'll fill this triangle, and then refill that with a face to make that even. And you can see immediately that starts to sharpen that up nicely. We can maybe select both these, scale them together just a little bit, sharpen it up. Maybe select these edges, shift right clicking on all the vertices, hit Control E, and edge slide, bring them over just a bit. And then we just need to clean up this over here. And perhaps the easiest way to go ahead and do that would be to add in another edge loop right up to here. Select these, fill in a face right there, and that will clean up that. And then let's just go ahead and select this. Let's hit V, or actually let's just delete this edge, add in another edge loop right there, take this out along the y-axis just a little, just a little bit, something like that. And then we can select these, fill in a face, select these, fill in a face, and there we go. Maybe we could take this, take it back along the x-axis a little bit. Maybe we'll take these in along the x and these in. We can select these, pull them along the y-axis a little bit, maybe down along the z. Take these along the z-axis a little, and maybe these as well. And that looks pretty good. Okay, that sharpens that up pretty well. And so now what I want to do is go in here and select this piece. We're going to select this edge, pull it up along the z-axis, take this one, move all those up. Let's go ahead and grab this edge right in here. And actually, we're going to go ahead and let's take this edge. We're going to hit S, Y, and 0. Let's pull this back to that corner right about there. And then we're actually going to hit V to split this. And we'll pull this back in along the y-axis a little bit. And then we can hit E to extrude, take it up along the z-axis. And then we'll do the same thing with this one. Just take it straight back along the y. That will split those. And maybe we'll even go and select all those, pull them back along the y to right about in there. Maybe down along the z just a little bit, just to kind of match this corner right in here. Then I'll also take this vertex, and I want to add in another edge loop right up to here, and select these such that it lines up with a sharp corner right in here, which I can pull up along the y-axis just a little bit. And then I want to even up this edge back in here, so I'm going to select these, select all these, maybe except that one, pull these back along the x-axis just slightly, just to line up about with that. Let's hit Tab to leave edit mode. Let's select this piece. We're going to select this edge, and again we'll first hit Shift E and 0.8, and then we're going to hit E to extrude, take it up along the z-axis just a bit to add in that extra bit of depth right there. And that looks pretty good. Although I did notice right now there's a nasty angle right here, so let's add in maybe another edge loop right there, and then maybe, let's see, from the top view, That looks fine. But what this then allows me to do is from the side view, I can then take this up a little bit to better match this gradual angle right in here. And I can take it right here, take it out along the x-axis about like that, just a little bit, along with maybe this one right in here. Deselect that one, deselect this interior loop. I'll just pull this in along the x-axis a bit, and that will just kind of even up that curve slightly. Okay. Maybe pull the whole thing in just a little. Okay, not too bad. Let's take in this interior loop. Let's take it up a bit further. And we can also go ahead and scale it down just a little bit along the x-axis, maybe about like that, just to ensure that this area gets filled. Oops, and actually I was selecting... Yeah, no, that looks good. Deselect those, maybe pull that in just a bit. Okay, I want to select this piece, pull this back along the y-axis right there. Let's go in, grab these. Or I think that'll be fine for the time being. But what I want to do now is add in another edge loop right up to here so that those are nice and sharp. And then on this piece, we'll add in another edge loop back to there so that we don't see anything merging wrong there. And we'll take this. I'm going to move it back along the x-axis a bit. Let's deselect this. We're going to grab this vertex and move it back along. Or let's actually select this edge, and we're going to hit Control-E, edge slide, move that down. Because then I can select this whole edge, deselect that one. I'm going to hit E to extrude, take it in along the x-axis to about there. And actually, you know what? I might as well just go and do this with the whole piece. About to there, and then I'll reselect that edge, hit Shift-E and 1 to sharpen that up. And then I can select this, maybe pull it in along the x-axis a bit. Select these, pull it in, SX. Maybe I'll average, smooth that a bit more. That starts to look pretty good. So now I'm getting a nice kind of seam right in there that looks pretty good. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is add in some extra detail in here. So I'm first going to select this loop, hit S, Y, and 0. And then these ones are already straightened out. So then I'm just going to add in, say, about 6 loops, or that's about more like 8 or 9 loops right in here. Doesn't need to be exact. And then I'm just going to hit Control-Tab, go to Face Mode. I'm going to select every other loop, leaving one extra loop right at the beginning just to give me a little more control of my topology. That looks good. And then I'll just hit E to extrude, right-click, Alt-S, and scale these down about like so. I can go in here, select all these faces except that one, just these side faces that I've created, hit X, delete faces, because then I want to go into edge mode by hitting Control-Tab, and I'm going to select and by Shift-Alt right-clicking on each one of these loops, because then I want to crease them. And I'm doing it in edge mode so that I don't crease the vertical edges. Okay, so now with those selected, I'll hit Shift-E and 0.8. I'll crease those up nicely, give me some extra detail right in here. But in order to look good, I want to go ahead and fix this a little bit. So with this selected, let's select it, maybe deselect this portion, and I'm going to pull this back. Let's go to vertex mode. We'll pull this back along the y-axis first, such that this edge lines up right about there. I'm going to deselect this portion, pull this back along or forward along the y-axis till that lines up about there. Deselect that one, then maybe pull this forward a bit more. Or actually, rather than going forward, let's just go ahead and pull it down along the z-axis. Can maybe select these as well. I can add in another edge loop right here, deselecting all of these and deselecting this one to average that out. And I'll grab this one, slide it down. And so you notice I'm lining up this edge basically to make these look fairly good. And so now with that done, I just want to go in here. I'm going to add in another edge loop to right about here. And then I'm going to select this edge, hit W and smooth a couple of times. And that will just kind of smooth out the kinks in that. And I can maybe select this edge. I'll scale in or bring it in along the x-axis a bit. Maybe scale it along the x a bit more. And then maybe I'll deselect these ones. I'll hit W and smooth with these as well. And then I'll hit Control E, slide them back up. Select this again, deselecting these ones. I'll hit W, shades or smooth again. Pull them back along the y-axis. Maybe move these back together just a bit. And that gives me a pretty nice smooth result. These ones right in here, I can go ahead and I'm going to take them out along the X. About like that. And then I also want to go ahead and select this entire piece, deselect this side of it, or the inside. I'm going to bring these in along the x-axis to roughly line up with the edge of that seam right in there, which will help just give me a nicer, cleaner result. And maybe I'll even go ahead, let's select these sides, deselect the inside here. I'll deselect this piece. I'm going to hit G, Z, pull this up along the Z-axis just to kind of smooth it out a bit more. Take it in along the X a bit more. Then I'll select this edge, deselect that vertex, pull that in as well. And that will just give me a slightly more rounded and slightly more appealing look. Maybe I can actually go ahead and slide this back in a little bit, about like so, to give it a little bit of a sharper edge. I could go ahead and maybe deselecting this vertex, Control E, edge slide, bring that down to about there. And maybe I'll hit Shift E and 0.8 to, or actually we'll just go all the way to 1. Crease that a bit. And that looks pretty good. So I think I can leave that as it is, save that. Let's go in and do just a little bit more detailing. We don't have too much more to do. We're not doing a lot of detailing right in here. You can kind of think of this as the bottom paneling of a car. And then, kind of covering some of the main details. And then right back in here is where we're going to really start to see a lot of the big details. So let's first, on this panel, I want to go ahead and add in some of these same kind of creases. First, I'll select this. Let's hit SY and 0 to make sure it's straight. Then I'll add in, say, 6 edge loops. I'll hit Control Tab, go to face mode. And then we're going to select every other face once more. About like that, except I'm going to leave these ones back here. We're just going to do the 3. Then I'll hit E to extrude, right click, Alt S to scale those in. And then I want to select these 3 interior faces that we've then created. Hit X and delete faces. Control Tab, go to edge mode, Alt right click and Alt Shift right click on the rest of these to select them, just like we did on the previous part. Rotate around so I can see this better. Select these ones, and then I'll, yes. Then I'll hit Shift E and say 0.8. And then I've got this extra edge right in here and this one from this piece. So I'm going to move this back along the y-axis a bit more so it can't be seen. And I get the feeling these ought to be a bit sharper. Let's take them all the way up to 1. Shift E and 1. Sharpen those up nicely. Then these edges still are conflicting. And in fact, we could go ahead and make this the same piece. So I'm going to delete this edge. And then I will, wrong one. Delete this one. I'll pull that back. Actually, let's just go in here. Delete these vertices. Or just this vertex, sorry. I'm going to grab this vertex. I'm going to snap to there. Grab this one. Snap to there. select everything, W, and remove doubles. Then I can select this interior edge, deselect that vertex, hit E to extrude, and snap into there. Select everything, W, and remove doubles. And then on this, these still look a bit weak. So what I'm going to do is add in an extra loop for each one of these along the bottom. So that's just Control R to add in those loops. That looks pretty good. I want to go ahead and add in another loop right through here as well to sharpen that up, since that's a fairly major seam that you see, quite obviously. I also want to add in a seam right across here to make this a little bit more mechanical. So I'm going to add in another edge loop through to here, right up to that edge, so you can see it, right as it gets there. We're also going to crease this at, say, 0.8, and we'll do the other one as well, also at 0.8. Maybe we'll slide this one down just a bit. So Alt-right click, select it, Control E to edge slide, bring it down just a little, and then maybe let's add in 2 more edge loops on the interior edges, or the inside of that, to really bring that together. And maybe we'll crease this one as well, and this one as well. And these ones right now that are just on the surface, so you can't really see it. So let's just take these down along the Z-axis just a bit, and that will make that flat surface really kind of pop. And to fix that, though, we've got a little bit of warpage in there. So let's select these loops. We're going to delete them, and then we will re-add them like this and like this. So then now that's a perfect straight seam. And now we've got a really nice mechanical line going straight on back. And if we hit Shift Space, we can make sure we're at level 2, just so it's nice and sharp. Let's maybe take this, and what we ought to do is we ought to go all the way back to the same width as this, basically. Or, well, no, never mind, because that would conflict with that in there. Instead, let's select these. Let's pull them back along the X-axis just a little bit. Pull these back in, maybe along the Y. Let's add in, I'd like to see a nice sharp edge right in here. So I'm going to select this as well, add in a seam, or add in a loop, sorry. And then we're going to, again, Shift E and 1, and Shift E and 1. Sharpen that up. Although, you notice with it, when you go to 1, you tend to get a really sharp angle, which I don't really like. So let's just take this back down to, say, 0.8. The 0.8 generally tends to give a pretty nice result. If you left click and drag on here while holding down Control, you can lock to increments of 0.1. And let's do the same thing then right here. So we'll first add another loop to help kind of average out the seam. Then we'll hit Shift E and 0.8. And same thing here, Shift E, 0.8. And that looks pretty nice. So that way we get some nice mechanical feelings right in there. Okay. Now, we're not going to do any of this detailing right in here because that's for the next section, but I think that this starts to look pretty darn good. We've definitely got some different sections that we could work with, but it's coming together really well. I might go ahead. No, we're not going to worry about that. Let's see. I'm just kind of trying to look at this from all different angles, kind of see how things are looking. I'm noticing a little bit of lumpiness right in here. So I'm going to go in here. Let's just see this from all angles, see what's causing this. And I think it's this one here. So let's select this. We're going to hit Control E, edge slide, which will then just kind of smooth that out, average it out a bit. This also looks a bit not quite clean enough. So let's add in another loop right up to there. Or actually, let's do it along this side. And then you'll notice that we're getting this part is kind of hiding beneath the surface. And so what we need to do is select this, hit G and Z, bring it up along the Z axis a bit, help kind of average that out. And that way we will get a smoother result right in there. You can even take it up a bit more. And we need to do the same thing right in here. That looks good. Let's select this edge. We're going to hit Control E, edge slide, bring it down a little, help average out that a bit more. Let's maybe select the rest of this loop, deselect that part by B, middle click and dragging. Take that along the x-axis just to help clean up that curve. Let's also take these ones here, Control E, edge slide. Again, just matching that angle a little bit better. We can go ahead and slide these back across a bit more. And that will just kind of help average things out a little better, which in general, when things are nice and average and in the center, you also tend to get a much cleaner mesh without, kind of lumps here and there. And that looks pretty darn good. I'm going to go ahead and select this loop right in here. I'm going to hit, or let's see, I'm going to do this one underneath. I'm going to hit Shift E and 0.5 just to add just a little bit of extra crease in there. And maybe we'll do the same thing right here with this one, noticing that, when we cross a pole right here, or kind of a separation in the edge loop, we need to reselect the other part. So we'll hit Shift E, 0.6 on this one maybe. Just help kind of do some final work. Let's also do the same thing with this loop. And let's just go all the way around these edges actually. So Shift E, we'll take this to 0.8. That looks pretty good. Let's do this perimeter right in here. So Shift E, 0.8. You notice that just kind of helps make it a bit sharper and clean it up a bit. We'll do the same thing around the lights, starting with this loop right here. So Shift E, 0.8, and then kind of zoom in here. Oops, actually that was the wrong one. Instead, we wanted this one, Shift E, 0.8. Let's also do this. So we just have to select this a couple of different times to get it fully selected. And Shift E and 0.8. And let's take this, there we go, all the way to there. And let's go ahead and select all this right in here. And you'll notice that this I put at 0.6, but then now this is at 0.8 right here. And so where this is merging, it's causing some interesting issues. So let's just take this up to 0.8 to make them the same. And now these all in here should all be 0.8, but they're not. So let's just take it up to average that. And we might just need to do it with all of them selected. There we go. Now it's all selected. Now take it to 0.8. Okay. Let's also do this edge right in here. There we go. That just gives us a slightly cleaner effect that looks pretty good. Okay. We are getting a little bit of artifacts right in there. So I'm going to maybe add in an extra loop right up to that edge. So let's just Control E, edge slide right up to it. We can maybe select this one, edge slide that up a little closer. And that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and on this top piece, you notice since this is the last video in this chapter, I just want to do a little bit of last minute detailing and touch-ups before we move on to chapter 4. So I'm just going in here, selecting all of these perimeters. And I'm going to add some creasing to it. We don't need to, but it can help. I really do like the combination of the creasing rather than only using creasing or only not using creasing. I think that the combination works really well. I want to select just the surfaces on here. And I'm going to add some creasing right down the surface here. Again, we'll just take this up to, say, 0.8. There we go. And maybe do the same thing right along here. Again, deselecting these inside edges. Oh, on the inside, actually along the center, that looks terrible. So we're not going to do that there. Okay, that art starts to look pretty good. Although let's go ahead and do these ones as well. Deselecting the inside vertices again. And Shifty and 0.8. Okay, so I think that pretty much brings Chapter 3 to a close. We've got a lot of work left to do, obviously, on the entire vehicle, but things are starting to come together. You know, we've got all the modeling to do in here, which is a bit intimidating, but we'll make it through. It's going to be really cool when it's all done, I think, so it'll definitely be worth it.